Hello, everybody. It is the Tuesday before Blarney, and this is UMass Sports Weekly, your number one source for all things UMass sports. As you probably know, I am your host, Tommy Kaludi, and as I always say, and as we always do, we got a great show for you today. Now, as usual, Phil Sanzo is going to come in and talk men's and women's basketball, but we have some new results to talk about. Men's basketball team made a very drastic personnel change in the game against LaSalle, which yielded their first win in quite a while, so Phil will break that down for us. And unfortunately, the women's basketball season came to an end, but freshman Haley Lydell was awarded by the A-10, and we're going to look forward to next season. So Phil's got all that on tap. Next, Liam Byrne comes in. We're going to talk about the men's hockey team who's still struggling, but had their senior night. We're going to talk about the Hockey East tournament. We're going to talk about what their senior night means and how they're going to look going forward. Then John Anderson comes in to talk about the men's lacrosse team. They're still teetering on being good, but John's going to tell us that maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel. And at the end of the show, I, in very Scott Van Pelt-like fashion, will give you a preview of the UMass women's lacrosse team and tell you just why you should be excited about them. The lights are really bright, the TV's behind me, and the microphone is working perfectly. And also, there's Victor Cruz. This is UMass Sports Weekly.
This is UMass Sports Weekly.
And welcome back into the show. Now, I alluded to it earlier, the men's basketball team took on LaSalle this weekend in a game that, doesn't mean much in the great scheme of things, but as Phil talked about, can really help them with seeding going forward to the A-10 tournament. So, I'm going to turn to Phil now. Phil, Derek Kellogg tried something new. Instead of having his usual starting five, he had the two teams that he usually puts out scrimmage, red team and black team.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong, red team is the bench?
Yeah, red team is the team you would typically see all coming off the bench.
So bench five beats starting five in practice. So what does Coach Kellogg do?
He starts them in the game.
And how did that work out for them?
For the Minutemen, it kind of worked out pretty well. They won 84-71 with that starting lineup. Zach Lewis, one of the players on that starting lineup, had dropped 37 points. Not only is that a career high, it's most highest points in the A-10 in a single game this season. So can't say it was bad. I mean, it definitely worked out well for the Minutemen who have been struggling. It was an interesting move by the coach. It's like he had tried integrating his freshmen. He tried integrating his experienced players. Nothing was working. That made evident by their record. So he's like, you know what? They've won practice. They're gonna win. They're gonna get the chance to play in the game, and it really worked out for them. He said, since if it's gonna continue to work, then they'll continue to do it.
Also important to note, we see guys we usually see starting Dante Clark, Dejan Giroux on the bench. How did they fare in this game?
Clark. If you look at the stat sheet, Clark wasn't the one that stood out the most. He only had 1 point, but he did a lot of other things that stats don't typically show that helped the Minutemen get to where they were at the end of the game. Giroux's a little different. Giroux came in, he scored 20 quiet points, 20 points that you didn't, like you looked afterwards like, wow, he had 20 points, and that's something you realized throughout the game. A lot of it was because he hit basically all of his shots. He wasn't taking a ton of shots. He hit he was 4 for 4 from beyond the 3-point line, and 7 of 8 in general. So he was hitting the shots he was taking, and ultimately resulted in having points. So yeah, he performed well off the bench.
Yeah, quickly, Phil, insider's take. Is this Kellogg feeling the pressure of my team's underperforming, or is this Kellogg trying to do anything to try and get a win on the board?
I feel both. He's definitely feeling the pressure of his team's underperforming. The team comes in and they're 4-10 or something in the A-10 right now. They're definitely feeling that heat, but at the same time, you have to take it a game at a time at this point. You got Richmond, you got St. Bonaventure coming up next. And then the A-10 tournament, and the A-10 tournament real quick after that. So I'm definitely sure he's taking a game at a time, but I'm sure he's feeling some pressure.
So moving on from that, excuse me, we have just several games left before the A-10 tournament starts. Give us a preview of that, what we need to look forward to.
Well, they got Richmond coming up this Wednesday at the Mullins Center. It'll be senior night last games. Not much of a senior night. Zach Turcotte be the only one, a walk-on player. And then they got St. Bonnie's coming up in St. Bonnie's giving up on Saturday in Olean, so an away game for them. That's going to be a tough game for them to win. St. Bonnie's always plays them tough, and playing them away is not going to make anything easier. Both of these teams are both top 5 A10 teams, so both of them are going to be quite the test for the Minutemen. It'll be interesting to see, especially if they play this bench lineup, how they're going to fare against Richmond with likes of TJ Klein, who one of the leading scorers, one of the better big men in the A10 and in college basketball. It'll be interesting to see how Bryson Gresham and Malik Hines match up against him. And coming off the bench, maybe they might throw Rashawn Holloway in there as another big buy to be physical with Klein. So the Richmond game will be an interesting moment to see if the bench team plays again, how they go, and see how they also can defend against like a little smaller of a lineup in Richmond.
Well, there you go. We will keep you updated on the men's basketball team as they move into the A10 tournament. Again, still a couple games left, so before we get really into the meat of the schedule. Now, Phil, we're going to turn to women's basketball. Before we continue, if you want to take a look at this graphic from UMass Athletics, Haley Lydell was named Freshman of the A10 and named to the All-A10 rookie team. Huge honor for Lydell. She averaged 15.5 points a game, 5.9 rebounds, and her 465 points this season was most ever by UMass female freshmen. So congratulations to Haley. And unfortunately, despite her performance, despite Maggie Mulligan, despite what the two of them have done all year, the Minutewomen went into the A10 tournament. And Phil, how'd they come out?
It's a little awkward, but it wasn't too good.
Wasn't too good?
No.
How bad?
Well, what's 20 times 2?
That'd be 40.
Yeah, that was it. It was
40.
91-51. Definitely not what you want to do in the playoffs. So the one and done against I think it was number 4th ranked St. Louis in the A10. So down there in Missouri. They lost St. Louis there. So it totally wasn't what they expected to do. And it was not a good game all around. They had 19-54 shooting and made 19 turnovers. As we talked about with the men's team multiple times, 19 turnovers won't win you a game. St. Louis was, on the other hand, very good shooting. They shot 12 of 23 from beyond the arc, so St. Louis did their job also. It's an embarrassing end to a season that started with a lot of promise but ended a little fizzled out, unfortunately. But it'll be interesting to see going next season. A lot of people returning, so.
Yeah, so you talk about next season. The team does have a nice core in place. Again, both Mulligan and Lydell returning, and assumably with Coach Verdi being in place for an entire season, he'll have the opportunity to recruit as long as the Twitter feed doesn't get in the way of that. So, Phil, we're looking forward to next year. What do we expect out of this team?
Like you said, they're going to have some good stars returning. They're going to have Lydell, Mulligan, McDermott, Holder. They should have all these people returning, some of their top scorers. So they'll have the core to rebuild, and they're getting some good recruits coming to the school as well. So they will have the tools to rebuild. It's going to be a matter of, can they have enough people in this roster? Can they get enough transfers or enough walk-ons almost to this roster so come this time next season they're not burnt out? So that'll be interesting to see. We can talk later on maybe about if Verdi's coach, if his first season was a success or not. I think sometimes with coaching you need to give it some time before you can look back at it. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously he's going to be here next year, I believe, and he'll have another season on his team after he learned and looked at the good things and looked at the bad things.
Well, there you go, Minutemen and Minutewomen fans. You have Haley Lydell and Maggie Mulligan to look forward to for next year, and for the men's basketball team, things could be on the upswing with this new this bench starting 5. Thanks a lot, Phil.
Yep.
When we come right back, Liam Burns is going to come on, and we're going to talk about some men's hockey. So stay tuned and do not touch that dial. And welcome back. We have made a quick substitution. Phil is out. Liam is in. Liam, how you doing?
Doing all right, Tommy. Doing all right.
How are the Minutemen doing?
Not so good.
So they took on number 10 Providence back-to-back games this weekend. They usually fare well against Providence. Beat them in last year's senior night game. Beat them a couple of times last year, I believe. How'd they fare this weekend on the back-to-back?
Both losses, unfortunately. Providence is number 10 in the country, so definitely a tough game for the Minutemen. For game 1, Alex Wakaluk started, obviously, because it was senior night. He had 29 saves in goal. The Friars were able to get off to a quick start, though. Quick 3-goal start in the first period. First 2 goals came 3 minutes apart, and the third goal came just a minute after the second. So they were firing on all cylinders, the Friars were. UMass was able to cut into the deficit, though, with a one-timer from Ivan Chukarov. And then UMass led in the second period, the shot advantage 11-1, which was very good, especially over a top 10 team in the country, even though Providence kept piling on, scoring two power play goals in the second period. And then the final score was 6-2. So Jake Horton was the one who put in the second goal for UMass and their last goal. But a key stat here from Ray Pagozzi. His one assist marked his 80th career point as a Minuteman and tying him for 29th all-time in program history. So now we go to Game 2, Saturday night at Rhode Island in Providence. Ryan Wischow gets the start. Had 40 saves. That's his third 40-save game this season, and he got the second star in this game. Saturday night was a closer game, though, for the Minutemen and the Friars, which was very good to see for the Minutemen. But they took a 2-1 overtime loss, which was a heartbreaker in heartbreaking fashion. Once again, though, Providence would continue their early success in the first period, scoring the first goal, one goal in the first 5 minutes. Ray Pagozzi was able to poke the puck off from a firing shot from Nico Hildebrand to get the score tied at 1. And like I mentioned last week, Tommy, missed opportunities were a big one in this one. Shane Bear ripped off a shot in the third period off a face-off and hit the crossbar. And you hate to see it because that would have tied the game right there. It would have been 2-2. No, it would have been 2-1, UMass right there. And they would have ended off fighting off 3 penalties to bring the game into overtime. And like this whole season has gone, this season UMass was unable to win this one in overtime, taking the loss 2-1. And yeah, that's how the weekend fared for the Minutemen. But a positive to end this one right here, Tommy. UMass held the Friars for 0-8 on the power play on Saturday night compared to their 2-7 on Friday night. So the special teams was working for the Minutemen. So nothing wrong with that.
Special teams was working. Special teams was working, and like you said, we've had an issue with this team. Either the goal gets called back, the post gets hit, or the net gets missed.
Mm-hmm. Or a goalie gets hit.
Goals have been difficult to come by, of course. So, William, we've come to the end of the regular season. Can you give us a breakdown of the final season stats for the Minutemen?
Definitely, of course. So for the stats here for the Minutemen, as you'll see, the shots stat portion, the goals per game is 1.9. Shot percentage is 0.75, and shots per game, 25.5. Now, the shots taken definitely could have been a lot more average per game. And if that happened, then the goals per game definitely would have gone up. Their opponent stats were goals per game was probably 3.9 average. So their opponents had a 3.9 average over them, which was not the best you could see. Power play, goals to power play were 16 out of the 170. That is not good at all either. Out of the shot attempts on the power play was 190. Penalties were big this season for the Minutemen, and it hurt them terribly. Penalties per game were 5.9, and the penalty minutes were 449. So for next season, we were hoping that the Minutemen squad can improve on these stats. And I mean, as their final record showed this season, 5-27-2, 2-19-1 in the Hockey East, putting them at the 12th spot in the Hockey East tournament. It didn't fare so well for the Minutemen. So they ended the season on a 15-game losing streak, and you hate to see that. You definitely hate to see that. So, we have to have some optimism here. We're always optimistic here on this show. So let's just see what looks forward to in the Hockey East tournament, Tommy.
So, Liam, like you said, 12 seed bringing up the caboose of the Hockey East. Now, there's still hope. They could potentially win the Hockey East, earn themselves a bid into the NCAA tournament. Not likely, but it could happen. So, give us a breakdown of what we're looking at in the Hockey East tournament and just what different mountains and molehills we'd need to climb if we wanted to make it to the Hockey East title game.
Exactly. Yeah. So UMass takes on Providence once again in the best-of-3 matchup at Providence. So I'm confident, though, because the last game that they played against, they brought them into overtime, and it was a 2-1 game, very close throughout. It was 1-1 for a long time. And Providence is the 5 seed, and UMass is the 12. So now on this bracket, UMass, if they were to win 2 against Providence, would most likely end up going on to play number 1 UMass Lowell, which UMass Amherst has had, as much experience as any other team in the Hockey East has, because they played them 3 times this season, 2 conference and 1 non-conference. So definitely, I'm not predicting a win out here for the Minutemen in this conference tournament because of just the powerhouse teams that are in this conference. It's just very, very hard to see them get into the finals here, Tommy, and get a bid into the NCAA tournament for hockey.
Yeah, not looking likely, but not impossible. We'll see if Steven Jacobellis and Ray Pagozzi can gather up some senior magic and make a run. Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot, Liam. When we come right back, we're going to be talking about the men's lacrosse team and their recent game at Harvard. Stay tuned. And welcome back. We're going to move on from the winter sports now to the 2 spring sports that are in play, men's and women's lacrosse. First, I'm going to bring in John Anderson. We're going to talk about the men's lacrosse team. John, Minutemen took on Harvard, a respectable, honorable lacrosse program. Tell us how this game went this weekend.
Well, Tommy, first off, you got the wrong team. No, I'm just kidding. There was a La La Land joke to be made there. I decided not to go through with it.
Come on.
It was Harvard.
Come on. Leave
UMass,
Warren Beatty alone.
Yeah, UMass took... Oh, I don't... That's a whole other discussion we'll have after the show. But as far as lacrosse goes, not La La Land. Harvard defeated UMass 11-7, or you could say UMass lost to Harvard 11-7. Because I would have to say that UMass really lost this one. Sorry about that, folks. And
we like to look good here.
Yeah, great, man. Great. Kind of like UMass Lacrosse losing this game in great fashion because, as you can see by this graphic, which is just stats, UMass really had the upper hand in just about every single category this game, including it was a 40-40 shot total, but UMass had 6 more of theirs go on net. It's the saves category is where the stat sheet really teeters in Harvard's direction, but face-offs and ground balls, UMass only missing their 1 clear. However, their man-up offense was a low point for them. But, you look at this game, and like I said, you look to the shots, and UMass does get 28 on net. However, the goalie, Robert Shaw for Harvard, he must have been doing, I don't know, maybe he was one of those old lacrosse goalies from the 70s when they were just allowed to wear, there was no rules for what goalies were allowed to wear in net, so they could wear literally mattresses in net. Some of them would cut out holes in mattresses, and then they would just stand there. There was nothing they could do about it because there was no rule about it. But no, that's not what happened. It was just the body and the pads and the stick, and he managed to make 21 saves.
21. That's hockey goalie numbers.
Yeah. See that, and when the net's 6x6, it's a bit harder to make those saves. But Robert Shaw, he came in and he
Robert
really
Shaw,
won this
the
one for
mattress
Harvard.
king.
Yeah. See, you can look at any stat, you can pull anything out, any tape. It's Robert Shaw, and Robert Shaw did the same thing to UMass last year. Harvard beat UMass by 1 goal in overtime last year, and Robert Shaw made about about a million saves that game.
I guess you can say UMass was subject to the shawning. Oscar joke. We'll move on. So we've talked about goalies. We talked about Robert Shaw.
Yep.
Now we're going to talk about DJ Smith, the UMass goalie. You've been a big proponent, big supporter of DJ Smith. Mm-hmm. After the way the season's gone so far, they've given up 9+ goals in almost every game. Are you still a Smither, or are we moving on from DJ Smith?
I'm still a Smither.
You're still a Smither?
Well, UMass doesn't really have any other options. I mean, Sean Scanone's there. Sean Scanone's a good goalie. Sean Scanone has played. He's had experience. He started a few games last year, but it's clear going through training camp, going through the offseason, that DJ Smith is the better of the 2 goalies. 50-50 split exactly here, and that's not as sad as the movie 50-50 because the positive is that there were some good saves. Only 21. He only faced 22 shots. 28 shots. So. I'm about to say the offense let him down, Tommy. I think the offense let DJ Smith down by not having the possession time that they needed to have the ball out of the zone, take the pressure off DJ Smith, and because of that, the pressure was allocated to everyone. Everyone was under pressure, and just because the goal number ends up being 11, DJ Smith is the one that people point to. But, however, UMass, worth pointing out that they are on that was their second of a 4-game road streak, so they've got plenty of time to, get back home, get some home games under their belt for them to acclimate themselves to the new defense. Like I said 2 weeks ago, whole new defense in there. everyone's new, everyone graduated, so it's basically a whole new team this year. And also worth noting that some of these stats, if we pull the curtain back a little here, some of these stats it's kind of difficult for us to really see what these stats mean, because the stats are really all we have to go on right now. And it's because of the road. It's because of the road streak, 4-game road streak for UMass. They've only had 1 game at home, and there's no film of this game. And I'm not there at Harvard as much as I was supposed to be at Harvard, but unfortunately WMUA is having some problems with conflicting games right now. So that's why we haven't been on site for some of these games. But that's just the truth. The truth is that for some of these things, we don't exactly know what every single problem is, and we may not know until that first home game back. They're at Albany tomorrow. They're at Yale next week. Both away games, both in the middle of the week. Student media is not going to be able to go down there and cover those games.
And we're the reason UMass athletics runs.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So without the media, there is no athletes. Basically. They're not popular without the media. So, I mean, that's my little pull the curtain back rant, I guess. But it is what it is, and I mean I suppose it's up to them to schedule games on the weekend when the student body can actually attend.
So getting back to your original point, DJ Smith, not his fault. We have the offense that failed DJ Smith. Do we have any explanation for why the offense is faltering at this point, or is it just excuses?
Well, there is one thing I point to. Well, first off, I already pointed to the big point, and that's Robert Shaw, obviously. The guy makes 21 saves. That's absurd.
The Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, the Robert Shawshank
The Robert Shawshank Redemption came back and just butchered the Minutemen.
Yeah, see, that's just unbelievable. That is an unbelievable number of saves. He's one of the best goalies in college lacrosse, so it's almost like a what could they have done differently situation. Well, I'll tell you what they could have done differently. I'm going to have to say right now that in the past 2 seasons, you look 2 years ago, UMass had 3 dominant attackmen: Peter Lindley, Nick Mariano, Brendan Hegarty. Obviously, UMass isn't an amazing lacrosse program. They're pretty good. Nick Mariano, after that season, led UMass in scoring, was one of the best attackmen in the country. He took off for Syracuse. Understandable. He's doing very well at Syracuse, by the way. We have Peter Lindley leaving the team for personal reasons last season. This offseason, confirmed, we have Brendan Hegarty also leaving the team for personal reasons. And so that basically just leaves Tyler Bogart as basically the last player to really be able to at least attempt to carry that rock of being a dominant attackman. And lacrosse offenses, Tommy, they fall apart when you don't have a dominant left-handed attackman. And yes, they're all at the point, they're D1 athletes, they're D1 lacrosse players. They can go right-handed, they can go left-handed, no problem. But it's very obvious when a player is on their offhand and playing on their offhand, and that's what happened last season when they tried to make Buddy Carr that player at the lefty attack position, and he wasn't that position. That was not his position to be the guy that okay, we need you to be our dominant lefty attack guy, and that's not who he is. And this season, they've currently only got 2 attackmen that have been consistently playing. I know Nick Roy started the first game. He hasn't seen much action since. Tyler Bogart scored 2 goals in this game. Tyler Bogart had an assist. He had an amazing game. But since the first game, they've just been rotating middies starting at attack with Gianni Biancan started at midi. He's not started at attack rather. He's a midfielder. Today or Saturday, Grant Consoletti starts at attack. He's not an attackman. Buddy Carr wasn't even an attackman before last year. He was a midi 2 years ago, and then last year, of course, they lose attackman. They're like, all right, you go play attack. And I mean, I know that the players are very versatile. They can play multiple positions, but the bottom line is none of them, except for maybe Tyler Bogart, is that dominant lefty attack position that can really, because that is a crucial point of attack in offense and lacrosse, and right now UMass does not have that.
So basically what you're telling us, UMass lacks the attack to be a successful attack. Pretty much.
Yeah, personnel.
UMass specifically, they lack the specific left-handed personnel, but I guess perhaps more of a cyclical, deep-rooted problem is the lack of recruiting for left-handed attackmen. Instead of putting middies through the mix chamber process of turning them into something they're not. Could be. I never know.
Yeah.
Never know.
It's like I said, it's just hard. It's hard to blame. You can't really blame one thing right now. But like I said, they're 0-3. They've been 0-3 in the past. Last year they were 0-3, and then they came back, or they were 0-2, and then they come back and they absolutely blow out Ohio State, who was ranked number 20 at the time. Not exactly what happened this year, but they've got a ranked team in Albany tomorrow, number 8, ranked Albany, number 8 or 10, something like that. That's what they got to deal with now. They got Yale next week, and once this road trip's over, they get some home games under their belt. The CAA is not as good as the teams that they play in the out of conference. So hope's not over until maybe there's a week left in the season.
Hope's not over, but, hope might not be lost either.
Yeah, a new hope. There's always a new hope.
Which
Hope
is
awakens.
Star Wars. Thanks very much, John.
Yep.
So we'll keep you updated on that Albany game, the Yale game next week. But when we come right back, we're going to talk about the women's lacrosse team. So stay tuned. And welcome back to the women's lacrosse segment. I, Tommy Kaludi, will be informing you. Right now, we have a women's lacrosse team that is 1-3. Now, they only have a win against a Jacksonville team that may or may not be great. They have 2 losses against number 17 BC and number 5 Syracuse, and they have an interesting, to say the least, loss to Colorado. However, what I'm telling everybody on the University of Massachusetts campus, every commuter, every grad student, this is the team you need to be watching at the University of Massachusetts. This women's lacrosse team has made NCAA tournament appearances the past 4 years, last year winning several games in the tournament. Now, the different thing about the team this year, they have lost some key pieces. If you want to take a look at some of the seniors that graduated last year, first I want to acknowledge Erica Ipe. Now, Ipe was a talent unknown to anybody here at UMass. 42 goals, 55 assists, 97 points as a senior. She was the leader of the attack on this team. Obviously going to be difficult to replace her, but she was definitely somebody who was phenomenal at what she did. I'll get into why later. Next, we have Eileen McDonald. Eileen was a great scorer, 37 goals, 11 assists. Really complimented Ipe on the wing, provided a lot of scoring touch, and did a lot for the offense. And again, the last person we're going to talk about, Nicole Troost. Now, Troost was an absolute sharpshooter, tied Erica Ipe, 42 goals last season, and what Ipe did was phenomenal for the team. What Troost did was even better. Troost was able to provide that scoring touch beside Erica Ipe and really create that two-headed attack that the team needed. Now, we're going into this season. What we want to look at is the fact that the team does have some juniors and seniors that came back, that are returning, that can still perform well. What I really want to look at, Holly Turner, Hannah Murphy, Kaylee Santos. These are 3 of the top 6 scorers last year on the team. Now, Erica Ipe, Eileen McDonald, and Nicole Troost all improved and increased their goal and assist output throughout their years. It happens with everything. You can see it in everything. Growing up, playing high school sports, even just developing as a human being. You get better as you get older, especially when you grow into your prime. What I'm telling you is this coaching staff has the ability to make great teams. Those 3 players I just mentioned, who are juniors and seniors in the team, they are going to be great this year. This team, they've stumbled out of the gate. They are going to be great this year, mark my words. Now, regardless of whether you like or don't like women's sports, whether you're not a fan of lacrosse, or whether you just plain old don't care, if you need something to cheer about as a fan of UMass sports, it's going to be this women's lacrosse team. They are the real deal. Lauren Hiller is the real deal in net. They are a juggernaut in their conference, and they will, mark my words, make another NCAA tournament run. So there you have it for women's lacrosse. We will try to get some players in studio, maybe a little more in-depth look at the women's lacrosse team. But unfortunately, that's going to do it for us this week here at UMass Sports Weekly. Like I always say, follow us on all of our social media accounts. Make sure you don't have a snafu like the Oscars. I don't really know how I could fit that in there, but I really needed to mention it. So glad I got that one off my chest. We will be right back here next week, Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. to talk more UMass sports. We'll see you later, UMass, and have a great week.